Hello and welcome to another episode of Round the Horns. We're doing our Mondays with Coach Schloss as usual. Coach, y'all are back from Vegas. Pretty successful weekend out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Super excited about how the weekend went. Super excited about the whole week went. As I told the team, I've told you before I don't meet with teams after games very often, but I did meet with them after yesterday's game because number one, we had time before getting to the airport. But I just wanted to compliment them because this time last week, we had come off a weekend where we weren't super offensive. I know the conditions played a big role in that. But at the same time, we didn't hit that many balls hard. We felt like we needed a reset in terms of reminding them who we're trying to be on as an offense. And then from a hitting standpoint, Tulo had some thoughts that he wanted to relay, and we relayed them. And then these kids worked their rear end off, and when you do that, you kind of want to do it like on a Wednesday, where you have all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, half the day on Friday to play. But we decided we wanted to go ahead and get started on it. And so I was actually super anxious about Tuesday night's game because we had a lot of players, hitters going into that game trying to, I mean, you can't think and play at the same time. Um, and so you could see it that they were trying to implement the things we had discussed, but that's really hard to do in a game. And and I think you saw that in the first 4 or 5 innings of the Incarnate Word game. And then, Galvan's ball got out of the ballpark and kind of broke the game open. And then they really went to work on it Wednesday and Thursday. And then saw some really good things. Jalen getting the bat head out, hitting some homers, hitting some doubles. Galvan's at bats, especially his last at bat on Saturday, was the best swings I've seen him take since he's been here. So it's a long answer to your question, but just process. I mean, yes, the wins, but the process by how we got there as a coach, when I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, I was just really, really proud of our team. It doesn't guarantee us anything moving forward, but it's nice when you see guys do what you ask them to do and then they get the results, right? If you ask them to do something and they don't get the results, then you're in a bad spot. And so the confidence level of these guys is and should be high.
Yeah, that was one of the things. It's always nice to go 3-0, but if you take a look at it in microcosm from last weekend to Tuesday to this past weekend in Vegas, you saw the progression, right? Like you mentioned Jalen Flores, early on Tuesday night, he still seemed a little bit tentative into his swings, a little late, just wasn't his timing wasn't quite there with his kick. And it was like the second, I think he got the double that was the down the left field line against Incarnate Word. It was like, okay, that looks like the Flores from last year. And then obviously he carried it over out in Vegas where, he was just sitting back on balls. He was getting extension without getting too long and he, looked really, really good at the plate. And I was just looking at the numbers and it definitely shows that, that kind of Tuesday night kicked off the party. But, the other guy was Easton Winfield. He got to play on Sunday and he went 2 for 3, which is a very small data point. But if you look at his first 5 games or 6 games, whatever it was, he was 2 for 19, and he looked like a very different person at the plate just from his mechanics and confidence wise. So
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you nailed it. On Jalen specifically, I think it was his first or second at bat Tuesday night. He hit a hard line drive at the third baseman. When third baseman kind of half dove, half fell and caught it. And I looked at Tulo and Tulo looked at me and I was like, there it is. There it is. That's what we're
yeah,
talking about. And then you're like, golly, can he get some positive results so that he can feel good about it? Luckily, Jalen's mature enough to know that a line out to the third baseman is a win. And then Easton, he wants to do so well. And he's got a lot of want to in him. And he's tried 2 or 3 different things. He's came in here with a toe tap, and then he was way spread out, and then we tried to spread him out less, and then it kind of clicked in Thursday batting practice at the Vegas field that night, where he was doing something with a lot more rhythm to it and was crushing baseballs. Um, but I also felt like there were other guys that earned opportunities, and we told them, said, listen, you're not going to be in the lineup for a day or two. I want you to keep working on this. Don't see it as a negative, and sometimes it's good to sit over there and just watch
Hmm.
and take some pressure off. And then on Sunday, well, Saturday night when I got back to the hotel, I told Tulu, I told him, I was like, I'm not going a full week without Winfield playing. Like he's got to play. And I wanted to get him a little bit of time in the outfield because he hadn't been out there in a while. And so, when you win the first two games, it gives you a little more leeway. Not that we want to lose a game, but or that I felt like playing him was going to cause us to lose. I just felt like it was a good time. And then he got that first hit, which kind of rolled through the infield. And then the second one was he hammered that ball up the middle. So now it's and he's down there working right now. Now it's going to be get those same swings off and get the ball in the air.
Yeah.
Um, and because for those extra base hits, and he still has to lay off. He had one at bat where he missed fastballs and then swung at the breaking balls down. And that's one thing that if you watch baseball and we try to get the hitters to understand, when someone strikes out, everybody always looks at the last pitch. Nobody talks about the two fastballs you missed in the at bat, right?
Yeah.
And so strikeouts happen. No two strikeout is the same normally, and so Easton, I'm hoping is on the comeback.
So, you mentioned the kind of getting into his power because we saw what he did at Louisiana Monroe last season. But there another guy that I think we've seen more power of that maybe wasn't as anticipated was Ethan Mendoza. He started out not slow. I mean, you talked about it before. He put really quality at bats together, 2 for 12. Now he's 12 for 21 over the past 5 games. Is that just finding that offensive rhythm and kind of just settling into, okay, this is my role. Here's what I'm looking to do, and then obviously working with you and Tulo and the staff.
It's all of it. I think he might have had at least one homer the first weekend of the season, in Arlington. Um, he's had some lucky ones. He's had a couple flares. He had a swing and bunt yesterday, but he's also lined out a bunch of times and made hard outs. So all those things equal out. The thing I'm most proud of with Ethan is if you look at his numbers last year, he had very, very low walks, very, very low strikeouts. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that he swings at everything. And when he swings, he actually hits the ball, which is actually not that good all the time. Because if you are a guy that has a low swing and miss rate and a high contact rate, then what should that allow you to do? It should allow you to get your pitch
Yeah.
and not be afraid to take pitches. And so we had what I did all fall, or what we did all fall and into this preseason is I made him take a strike every at bat just to learn how to see pitches. I don't think he liked it very much. Um, and now he's gone from hitting ninth to hitting leadoff. And now most of the times, if you watch us play and he's taking pitches, he's doing that on his own. Like
Yeah.
my point is like he's bought into a mentality and he's going to strike out some because when you're hitting with two strikes, you're going to strike out. You can't strike out with one strike. But he can use the whole field. And Matt Couch, our strength coach, he used to be credited. He's gotten a lot stronger, put on weight, and he's also learned how to kind of manipulate the barrel. And when he gets in leverage counts, that he can do some damage. And he went from hitting balls at 99 to 101 when he first got here to 106, 108s, and balls that'll go out of ballparks or at least go to fences. So, um, we have a long way to go. The real stuff hasn't started yet. I mean, they all count, but we all know what's looming here in 2 weeks. But we certainly need to keep him healthy, and he's playing good defense too.
Yeah. You mentioned Tulo and the work he's done. I know in the past, and this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he talked about he likes line drives. If you hit a line drive and it happens to go over the fence, success. But he loves being able to drive it to all fields. And one of the things we've seen out of Max Blue this season is he's become more of a well-rounded hitter where he gets 2 strikes. I'm just going to send it right back up the middle, right? With authority, but I mean he's sending it back up the middle. Has Tulo really harped on these guys to like, look, it's sexy to go chase home runs and power, but at the end of the day, we want a complete offense. We want to be multifaceted in that manner.
Yes, I would say two things. One, yes, Tulo does do that. He called our first round of BP every day was what they call trust, where you're seeing the ball deep, but you're still putting an aggressive swing on it. You're not what I would call filleting a ball to the outfield or having that lazy, like you saw Jalen do early in the season, all those
Mm.
soft fly balls to right field. You're hammering balls, low liners into right field if you're a right-handed hitters, low liners into left field if you're a left-handed hitter, and then you gradually work from that. It's way easier for a hitter to speed up than it is for him to slow down. And so that's one thing that, and that's where Troy and I are so aligned. And then me personally, I just think I take it as a personal assault. I shouldn't, but I do. I take it as a personal assault if you can play a shift on our hitters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, golly, I'm not doing this kid right. And that's over the top. People played shifts on, they still do play shifts on Jace Lavalette. He can just hit it over the shift, so it doesn't matter. Um, but eventually a player is going to become who he is. But yeah, Max hitting that backside two strike double left on left, by the way,
Yep.
uh, which is a great sign. And that was one of Illinois' better lefties that they've been using in leverage play. And then Mendoza going backside. Even Chamberlain made a pretty loud out to left field yesterday. Uh, there was, Duplantier, awesome, like so awesome. Uh, Super excited about who he can become when we need him. So, yeah, the best teams use the entire field to hit, and that's what we want to be.
Makes sense. Touching on pitching, once again, you got two really good starts out of quality starts out of Spencer and Harrison. Harrison, I believe, had a career high in strikeouts. How have you seen those guys' games even evolve within the season itself, just in terms of, I noticed Spencer early on using changeup and he kind of went away from it last weekend, but back this weekend, what are you seeing out of those two guys particularly?
Yeah, I think on Spencer, the against Dartmouth, who we were playing, what the best pitches were against those guys was a lot different than pitching against Louisville and pitching against who'd we play first game?
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, big physical right-handed hitters. So but we know that if he's going to be a successful SEC pitcher, you're going to need three pitches. And and I think he threw more strikes and just managed the game, right? Like kept we left him in there. There was a point where I was like, should I get him here? When he got that last strikeout, and I was like, no, man, like if this is our horse, like I need him to be able to get this out. Like we got to, or at least we have to find out if he can get the last out,
Yeah.
And he did it, and so proud of him. And then Luke, I thought he was solid. I thought he had some really big misses. I would like to see those go away. Again, there, it's never going to be perfect, right? Or it's rarely going to be perfect. But he would have some big misses, and he got in too many three ball counts for me. But then Max has done such a good job of giving him some arsenals. He throws three different fastballs. I
Hmm.
mean, and so even when it's a fastball count, he can throw a fastball, but it doesn't have to be the same fastball you saw on the 2-0 count, right?
Yeah.
And so the hitter, it's not an incredibly comfortable at bat. And his velocity now, knock on wood, I mean, his average fastball is now it's right around 91.
Yeah.
And in the past, when I would watch Texas on television, he is 87, 88, on good days. And so he's to be credited for that. Again, Matt Couch be credited for that. Our new trainer, Sam Myers, she's been a huge impact on our team, especially our pitching staff that no one knows about. Very similar to the impact that our new trainer at A&M last year had on our team. Sam is very, very, very much a part of this. And of course, Luke and Max put all that work in. So, yeah, we just have to keep those guys healthy because we're still trying to figure out who starts the other games, and we could ill afford to lose either of those two pitchers.
Yeah, it was definitely impressive where, to your point, like Luke definitely got in some deep counts that you probably don't want to see as often. But he was able to mix up the speeds and mix up the shapes on some of those pitches to, not offer the same look over and over and be able to go a little bit deeper. From the Sunday start, how do you all evaluate the final weekend before conference? I mean, some teams truly use it as, okay, this is our mock. This is what we're going to do. We're going to step into conference going forward, but use it as that, or is it just another weekend of like, we need to see the progression, we need to see the work and get the results?
Well, we want to win the games, but there's no question. We none of us got to bed till about 2:30 last night after having to fly commercial back from Vegas and all that involves. But Max, mainly Max and I, we've been having these conversations for weeks about, what are we going to do? Let's see this. Let's give this guy this opportunity to grow up in this role. Obviously, I mean, he's super talented. And, you know, what do you do with him? Obviously, he's going to be a starting pitcher for us at some point this season. He's going to be a starting pitcher for us, of course, next year. Um, wow, but there's also it's so much value in having him in the bullpen. What would Cade Bing look like in short stints out of the bullpen? Kind of a Shane's. I hate to bring up the A&M references, but those are just the ones that are most recent,
Yeah.
especially Texas fans would know. I mean, Shane Sadeo, who, if he wouldn't be having Tommy John surgery, he'd be a first, second round pick this year. His freshman year, we used him out of the bullpen, kind of a similar body as Cade. Cade's not as tall, but same quick arm. And by the end of the year, Sadeo was running fastballs by people in Starkville, Mississippi at 94 miles an hour. And then he got stronger and confident and became a great starting pitcher last year. So what would Cade Bing look like as an everyday reliever? We know what Valanis can be as a reliever. So we got to make some decisions on that. Let's see how Flores pitches on Tuesday. Um, and then there's also, and you'll see this a lot. I don't know what it was like in the Big 12, but there really isn't that many teams that have three starting pitchers. There's actually very few that have two. And so what you see a lot in the SEC is you'll see a Friday starter, a Saturday starter, and then that famous guy TBA.
Yeah.
And basically what the teams will do, and I've done it. We did it last year. Is you say, hey man, if we have a chance to win, especially on the road, if we have a chance to win, we're going all in to win the game. Because if you could just grab one game, we're trying to win them all. But if you can just avoid getting swept and maybe win a series, man, it changes everything. So um, we need to have those discussions this week, and this time next week you'll know what our plan is. But the plan is to whoever pitches on. To answer your question, the plan in my mind as of today would be to have whoever pitches this Sunday would more than likely pitch the next Sunday. Don't hold me to it, but that would be the plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. How big of you didn't get to see him in the fall, obviously. But how big of a development has it been for the back end of the rotation, especially like that middle relief, or even, he's got a couple saves now. Has Max Grubbs been? He started last year kind of out of necessity. Um, but just kind of the bulldog, like, this is my game now. I'm gonna go out and just battle.
Yeah, huge. Because A, it helps our team. B, it takes pressure off Ruger. Um, Ruger's a guy that probably have asked too much of him in the last 2 weeks. So my goal is to not pitch him again until next weekend. I really want him to kind of get his feet under him, get his legs under him. We'll see, what kind of dogfight we get in tomorrow. Obviously, I would prefer not to. I won't use Max tomorrow. Max could start, uh, but I've always had this little. I call it all-time pitcher. Like when you're a kid and you play wiffle ball, or maybe kids don't do this these days, but when I was a kid, and if you played wiffle ball or kickball, someone would always say, "All-time pitcher. I'm going to be all-time pitcher."
Yeah.
And the best teams I've ever coached have had an all-time pitcher. And Asher Beck was that for us last year at A&M. Jacob Palish was that. Uh, my first year there at TCU, we had a guy named Trey Teakle who was incredible, could
Yep.
literally pitch in any role. And so that's where I see Ruger and Max. And if you can have two of those guys, Um, and they both get the lefties out, which is important. Now you're talking about something, right? And I think Duplantier can be used in some different roles to help alleviate some of that. And I would guess I think in a perfect world, I'd like to keep those guys where they are.
Yeah, makes sense. Y'all faced some adversity. Not that y'all didn't, obviously, in Arlington and Dartmouth, just either tight games or, it was just the
Mhm.
scenarios. But, where you're up big and you start seeing the team come back, or, you're down by 5 runs. Won't call it big, but I mean, down 6-1 in the middle innings is nothing to sneeze at. Are you starting to see like the identity of the team itself kind of manifest itself? Every team operates very differently and has different leadership styles, et cetera. But what are you seeing from that aspect?
I'm seeing that these kids really enjoy being with each other. They truly like being together. Um, I'm a big believer in what we call dugout intent. I don't want to be we're not a bunch of cheerleaders. I don't want to, you watch some of the things that go on in college baseball. College softball is its own environment. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about that, but there's some things that go in college baseball where dugouts cross lines and it's just cheesy and stupid. What we call it is spotting, right? And so, in other words, if Zach, if you were to go in the weight room today and you regularly bench press 200 pounds, but you were going to try 220 today, if you're bench pressing that 220 today and nobody else is in that weight room, what are the chances of you getting that 220 up? But if you're surrounded by your teammates and you're being encouraged and you feel like they're right there with you, well, you got a better chance to push that weight. And so that's what we want in our dugout. And guys like Oliver Service and Duplantier and Jacques Stewart, those guys are to be credited too, because they're constantly in the game. They want to play more. I get it, but they're right there with them. And the whole pitching staff is like that. So we've had a lot of that. And if when we were down 6-1 yesterday, if you were in the dugout, you would feel it. But here's the challenge: is that adversity's coming,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean it's whether it's a tough loss, whether it's back-to-back losses, whether it's a series loss, whether it's losing to a team that everybody thinks you should walk over. Um, there are ebbs and flows to a season, and every single team has its own story. There are teams out there right now that were supposed to be awesome, and they're going through a rough patch, and they'll be fine if they allow it to be fine. If and the fans are going to be fans, but if they allow it to be fine and just move forward, they'll be fine. And we're going to have those moments too. And I think one thing I said to the team yesterday after the game was, remember how we're doing this right now. And when it goes sideways, don't start pointing fingers. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep supporting each other. The whole standard play to a standard, not a scoreboard thing. And so yes, it's awesome and they're great. But those days are coming, and we just need to make sure we push through it.
Awesome. Well, I know you've got a lot of work to do. Y'all have got your off day today, but back in action tomorrow against Texas A&M Corpus Christi at 6:30. So everyone should definitely get out to the dish and, back home this weekend against Santa Clara, which should be an amazing time because the weather is supposed to be beautiful. So, um, thanks for the time again, Coach, and look forward to seeing the team back on the field.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And just let me say on that, we have what, 5 home games in a row, 4 home
Yep.
games in a row. Supposed to be great weather. I know there's a lot going on. Man, we really need everybody at the ballpark. We did set up that deal where they created an email address where you can send me the tickets. We are distributing those tickets and getting those tickets out. I can't tell you how important it is when they turn these games on TV and when you see the place full, it has massive recruiting impact. When you see empty seats all the way down the left field line, it doesn't look good. And so we really need people at the ballpark. And if you can't make it, I personally, I sent out probably 30, 40 tickets last week just to people. So we really need people at the ballpark and support these kids. And we're going to have great weather. So should be a good week at the dish.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for the time, Coach, and hook 'em.
All right.